All right, welcome to the show. We have the background here in honor of Ali Khamenei, which thank God is dead. Moral of the story: Ayatollahs, the historical constant all through history. If you mess with the Jews, you end up dead. And so we hope you burn in hell. I haven't commented on the Iran war yet because I really haven't been sure about what to say about it, what the reason is. Nothing has been clear. I've heard lots of different explanations. The Israeli side that the Israelis dragged the Americans into the war. Is it an Israel war? I've heard explanations because of China, because of Russia, because of Ukraine. Nothing is really quite fit. Now, based on the facts we have in front of I think this is what happened. So ever since the United States reinstated crippling sanctions on Iran, and and the last year's war showed the regime to be completely incompetent and out of their depth, and all their plans collapsed. Also, Israel showed that their defenses were very weak, and so the regime was very weakened. And the protests, because of that, because of the fall of their currency, the protests happened in the end of the last year, which caused Trump to say he would take action. Now, Trump didn't really have a plan, and Israel didn't have a plan either. But Trump promised to take action, and so he would have looked inept if he didn't, because he drew a red line and he didn't want to look like Obama. So he decided he's going to take action. Now, what's the justification for the war? Well, Iran has been at war with America for years, and the real and true, honest justification is that you attack your enemies when they're weak, not when they're strong. You know, this whole nonsense thing of did they represent an imminent threat? Did they not? It's been the policy of Iran to undermine America. So now that they're weak, they shouldn't kick them when they're down. And of course, it's not a nice explanation. That's not a beautiful explanation. But that is what's happening. There's two states against each other. One of them is antagonistic to America, and they kicked it when it was weak. Now Israel was dragged into this war because Israel's prime interest is getting rid of the Iranian regime. So it wasn't going to sit this out. And so if Trump was going to act, they were going to act with Israel. And so there's been a tremendous opportunity for Israel to be able to act hand in glove with America. But this is America's war. This is because Trump gave a red line and couldn't back off that. Now the question is, should one have ever issue such red lines? I don't know. But the Iranians were never going to give up their missile program or their nuclear program. And why should America stand for that threat? Now, what will success look like? So first of all, what will failure look like? I believe that if America can't keep the Straits of Hormuz open, if America can't reopen the Straits of Hormuz, it will look like a complete failure for America. America would have looked like they lost the war, irrespective of if their goals were to degrade the nuclear program and the missile program. But they will look completely incompetent if they can't stop the Iranians from closing down the Straits. So Trump has to open that. If he can't, there'll be humiliation for America. Broader goals. Dislodging a regime is very hard. And you can't win a war with numbers of targets. You know, let me explain. So during the Vietnam War, the Americans started releasing, body counts, how many people they had killed on the other side. The assumption being that the other side only has a certain amount of people to go, so they can just run through all of them. Of course, that has a lot of holes, and it did. And it was not a good metric. In the same way, I've become a little bored of hearing how many targets they hit. I always hear we thought Israel had destroyed Hezbollah, and they seem to still have a capacity. And Israel's been constantly hitting them. So are they? Is it so easy for them to reconstitute? What does that look like? Dislodging these enemies from their areas is a much more painful process. Israel has reached a point, in Lebanon, where they just have to make it painful for the rest of Lebanon. If you continue to house this, they have to make it that disarming Hezbollah is less painful than what Israel will inflict on them. Because this is ridiculous. You can't have this paramilitary force, but you've promised to disarm, and is shooting at Israel. And Israel just has to bomb Beirut. That's it. Lebanese have to decide what type of country they want. And the same thing goes for the Iranians. Ultimately, the Iranians have to get rid of this regime. What can Israel's goals be here? Certainly to degrade its missile capacity and weapons capacity. But I think if the regime survives, it will look like a stalemate, which is why this is a very serious gamble. It will look like a draw. And that's why this is a very serious gamble. And I hope they have some plan. but certainly nobody's articulating the plan about what to do. Some people talk about this island that they could control and then control oil shipping. I hear that. I think I wonder if that could backfire. I don't know. And I'm not saying I'm not saying there isn't a plan. I'm just saying in the past there hasn't been a plan. The last few years haven't been a plan, and regime changes have notoriously gone bad. Many have pointed out that Persia is not like Iraq, which is, ready to break into fractures right away. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'm not sure if that's right. We hear about the Kurds. The Kurds are just always ready to come in, and then get trade by the United States. So I don't know what the Kurds are going to, how that's going to pan out. I really hope Israel has a plan over here to get rid of this regime, because that will be, their staying power will be bad in the long run. In the long run, because their staying power will be considered a victory for them. Now, in the long run, they may fall like Assad. It took a few years to weaken him, but he eventually fell. In the long run, if Israel does have set back Iran, say 20, 30 years, that is a extremely big win, because that means, let's say they are still struggling to support terror. Let's say they sets back their missile capacity. Israel is racing ahead. And this is something we haven't begun to consider. War in the next 20 years will change drastically. I think there'll be very few human beings will actually be doing it. And then the whole calculus changes. Imagine if Israel administered the West Bank and Gaza, but with just robots that never had to take a shot early because their life was in danger. They could administer them very effectively. Then the calculus for the Palestinians would change, because who would they be committing terrorism against? The same thing goes for missile defense. What missile defense is today, what it will be in 20 years from now will be something quite remarkable. We've already seen laser weapons being deployed. What will happen with AI, and I know each side will have AI, but you can bet your bottom dollar the Israelis, please God. And with AI, you really have a force multiplier that we've never seen before. Israel's size may not be a limiting factor anymore. So I'm hopeful, because even degrading their capacity, delaying their missile capacity 10 to 20 years and knocking them back in the fight will really be a win, because Israel, with the grace of God, will pull ahead. Right. That'll do for today, guys.